Hey, what is up, guys? It is Rapmark here. So, doing my review for Candyman. It is super late. If you followed my vlogs, like it's been crazy. My stepdad's celebration of life and stuff, other family stuff. So, yeah, it took me a lot longer to do this than I had anticipated, but we're gonna go ahead and do this now. Uh, so I mean, I, it's been a while, but I do remember watching the first Candyman and loving it. And from that point of view, and I know that there were two other movies, and they were not good. uh, but yeah, with that, this one, I wanted, I really, really wanted to, I really, really had higher expectations for this. I mean, I know it's been a while. It's been what, like 20 something years since the last one, but this one just kind of was a disappointment for me, to be honest. I mean, the characters were good, the casting was good, but I mean, there were a lot of decisions where I was just like, "What are you doing?" Like, so this went from like the original Candyman, being horror slasher kind of thing. It seemed more like and that one like had a bit of a social message as well. The guy like is a slave, or something like that. And yeah, he gets killed. Um, but yeah, this one's kind of like there's a bit of like horror into it, and definitely there's some slasher stuff. But it's like most of the movie is a whole social commentary about the injustices of black people to white cops. Which I mean, by itself, um, like that's a good message. I'm not against that message, um, and certainly not against the other uh, social messages it does carry. Um, it's just the fact that with the name Candyman, there are certain expectations, and this one seemed to have thrown them all away. There was they promoted heavily that Toby Todd would be in here, and I was disappointed with how they included him, as well as the original. What was her name? Helen. Yes, Helen. Yeah, it also has the way they sort of played them in this. It was kind of sad, but I mean there were essentially like yeah, and the whole I don't know. I was just really disappointed, like how there are. It turned him from this in the original. The Candyman was someone who wanted to, build his story, become this great legend. He didn't care who he killed. He killed everybody, and in really, really, really weird ways. Uh, usually involving his hook, but also there were a lot of other things, and it was creepy. It's like especially with the bees, and this one it like turned him into again this instrument of driving forward social justice, which again the message itself I didn't complain about. It's a good message if you can do a good story, but I mean to put that into a Candyman plot, it was a bit heavy-handed, to be honest. Like the whole message was just like, I get it. I get what you're trying to say. Please stop. And yeah, it was for me a little overdone, and it kind of brought it down for me. Like this movie, and I love some of the stuff they do with it. I love things with mirrors and like stuff in the shadows And they do that, and it's a really cool effect, but the pacing and just like the pacing was just all off. Like there are times where it's just like, oh gosh, and then it builds up, and then just it vanishes into the void, and you're just like wondering, well, where's this going? And then it kind of drags along, up until I'd say probably the last 3 minutes. The last 3 minutes, that's it gets good. But at that point, I'm like, this was not the movie I was expecting, so I'm kind of out of it. I'm kind of like, I mean, this is a little too late. So let's see what else to mention on there. There was one more thing I was going to talk about. Oh, so in this movie there are like, I guess paper, cardboard like cutout things, which they do to like sort of when it's like flashbacking, telling the story of the Candyman, and it's actually really super cool. I love like the effects they did. I love the visuals they did. I don't really have complaints about the casting aside from like how they brought the original Toby Todd character, the Candyman, and the Helen into this movie. Like those are the only complaints I really have about this. Um, I it's pretty much all just the story, because it didn't feel like a horror. Its pacing was all off. Um, the tension was practically non-existent. I mean, it was there. Don't. That's not the right way to say it. Like it was there, but it was very again uneven. It would be like build up, and then there would be like certain plot points that would just disappear into the void, and it was a little sad, and it definitely didn't feel like a Candyman film. It just seemed like a social commentary piece, you know, put out with the label Candyman. And yeah, I was sad, but keep in mind, like there's a lot of horror films out there, like Amazon, Netflix. Most of them suck, just terrible. Uh, um, so this one wasn't terrible. Like if it was a standalone film, I probably would have liked this a little bit more because the movie itself wasn't bad. Again, I don't mind the message. I don't mind what they were trying to do, but it just didn't feel like a Candyman film. It didn't feel like a horror film. Um, so, I mean, with that said, I have to give this one probably a 6 because again, it's not a bad movie. It just it's not what it says it is. It's not a Candyman movie. It just feels super weird, and I was disappointed with it. But I mean, again, it's not a bad movie. I can't say I recommend going to see it. It is only slightly above average. Um, but it wasn't a terrible movie. I wouldn't say don't go see it. So I kind of leave it up to you on that one. If I were to say it as a fan, I'd give it like a 4 because I'm really upset at what they did with it. But again, I'm trying to be as impartial as possible, and it wasn't a bad movie. Just it wasn't a Candyman film. So there you go, 6 of 10, and I think that is it for the review section. So we will go ahead and go right into the spoilers. So I will see you there. Hey guys, what is up? It is Rapmark here with the spoiler section of the film. So it takes place about 27 years after the original film, and it deals with Anthony, who is a sort of artist, visual artist, who has a girlfriend, Brianna, who is an art gallery director. So Brianna's brother Troy shares the legend of the Candyman, and kind of how the urban legend of it turned Helen Lyle into like the one who did the killing spree, and how her rampage culminated in a fire outside of the Camber Green housing project that she attempted to sacrifice a baby. Now, again, they did a lot of the backshadowing through again paper puppets, which I absolutely loved. So they do another one like again the whole origins of the Candyman, which is a little they've changed it from the original one. Let's just say that there are apparently like four Candymen that, and the Candyman is just like an amalgamation of. And again, they changed him from like this person who just wants to be a big legend. He wants his story to grow to essentially like he is just this tool for social justice. I mean, one of them is like a child that was found guilty of it, that was fingered for a crime and executed. Another was obviously the Toby Todd character, the slave, good painter. And then there was one in the 60s who was like this black guy who like had a hook in his hand and gave candy to children. It was I don't know. It was super weird, like sort of changing it from one person to doing the whole four things. And again, it fed into the whole social justice narrative, which again, I'm not complaining about the message per se, just the way it overwhelmed everything else in this movie. It was again very heavy-handed. So anyway, while he's while Anthony's looking for inspiration because he's kind of been through a dry spell. So he's looking for inspiration and meets William Burke, who is the laundromat owner, who is kind of like the bad guy in this film, because he's trying to bring like the Candyman back, and like Anthony gets stung by like this supernatural bee somehow. I don't know. And his hand starts to like decay, and it's super weird. So anyway, it shows how Sherman Fields. So this is a different person. So he was a hook-handed man, and they thought that he was responsible for putting a razor blade in a piece of candy, and he was hiding in a wall. And then when Burke was coming out after doing laundry, he comes out with a big smile and holds out some candy, and then he hears noise. Like it's weird. And then cops, a lot of white cops come in and essentially beat him to death. And so he became the Candyman. I guess that's the latest iteration or whatever, but I don't know. I was not a fan of it. I was not a fan of that aspect. So with that story, he does a Candyman thing and does it at the art gallery. Um, Most of the audiences, I guess, don't get it. Like, there's a critic there who criticizes it, and yeah. But that goes to the first kill. The kill scenes were great. The kill scenes were great. So, um, Brianna's, I guess, boss, coworker, I don't know. Essentially, he has a reputation for going after underage girls or girls who are very much younger than him. And his assistant there, yeah, so they're making out, they're getting ready to do the deed, and then they do Candyman 5 times, and she gets her throat slashed, and then he tries to escape. He gets stuck there. Boom. So there it is. And then at that point, the legend sort of spreads, which is the way the original one intended it to be. So more people are killed. The critic gets killed. Like it goes into this whole thing. Like he starts to have hallucinations, I guess, or like something in his mind go off, and his arm is just deteriorating this whole time from this sting from this bee. But yeah, the critic, like she does Candyman 5 times, comes out, and she doesn't get killed immediately, but then as soon as he walks out the door, she gets picked up and then just completely just slaughtered. And I wish that one had been a little more intimate, but it is what it is. So again, into showing how big the legend is spread, it goes into this high school where girls are kind of white. A bunch of white girls are going into this. A black girl comes in, and it's kind of showing them as bullies. So they're giving her a lot of crap. They do the Candyman 5 times. They can't, and then suddenly they can't get out, and they all just get slaughtered. There's blood everywhere. There's just dead bodies. It is, yeah, it is super bad. I mean, it was good. Like the kill scenes were good, but again, I wasn't a fan of the fact that they didn't have Toby Todd doing it. Yeah, it was annoying. So eventually, Anthony does go to the hospital. He finds out that his mother lied about where he was born, and that he was the baby who Helen went into the fire. So if you remember the first one, the original Candyman, the Toby Todd character kind of falls in love with Helen, reminds him of his original love. And I forget why he's about to sacrifice this baby. I forget. But in essence, she saves the baby, gets burned up, and becomes the next Candyman. Obviously, the next two movies, I'm not sure how well they played into that. It's been a while since I've seen them, and but I remember them being bad, very bad. But yeah, so essentially, this movie like obviously ditches the last two Candyman movies, and also apparently the last 5 minutes of the original Candyman movie, which yeah, it changed the lore, and it's super weird because again, like, and there's certain well, that's super weird, but it's weird like how there are also plot points in this movie that don't go anywhere, like Anthony's girlfriend. It does like flashback scene where it's just like he's a famous painter and he commits suicide, and it's just like okay, that was interesting, and like are they trying to tie in something or something like that? But yeah, no, it literally is a plot point that literally goes nowhere. It's mentioned a couple more times in the film, but just like what does this serve like at all? It's weird. But yeah, as soon as he realizes the truth, he I guess leaves and is resigned to his fate of becoming the next iteration of Candyman, which is super weird. Um, again, like for me, Toby Todd was the only true Candyman, and I was sad. But yeah, then you go into Burke. So he reveals that he witnessed Sherman's death and his spirit returning, and witnessed him killing his older sister and a bunch of her friends. Uh, so he now takes Anthony, who's in a fugue state, so kind of like a coma. He then calls the police uh, because he is now wanted for all these deaths that have been happening. Um, and so he calls the cops and he wants to witness it because he's crazy. Like at this point, is there's no doubt in your head, Burke is absolutely just batshit crazy. Um, so to complete the transformation, saws off his right hand, replaces it with a hook. Crazy, and Brianna, he subdues and captures Brianna, uh, Anthony's girlfriend. She escapes in the church that they're at, and she ends up brutally murdering him. Like it is like vicious, vicious stabbing, and I'm just like, holy hell. And then Anthony, like, I mean, he's dead. Like he's dying. He's just deteriorating. But at the same time, like the cops wander in, and they shoot him as he's laying at her in her lap, and then they take her in, and they're trying to convince her to say that he pushed them into firing their weapons, and she kind of gets out of that by using the rearview mirror of the cop car to say Candyman 5 times, and then he appears and he just slaughters all the cops. But doesn't kill her, which again is another rule of Candyman that is broken, because if you say his name 5 times, he will kill the summoner and anyone who was around to summon, or who was part of a summit. Which, I mean, that's a double rule break, because I mean he killed all the cops even though they weren't involved in the summoning. He left the black girl in the bathroom alone. You know, he left Burke alone. So I don't, at this point it just like sets him up as a tool, as a weapon of social justice, which makes no sense. It breaks all of his rules, and is definitely not based on the original Candyman in any way, shape, or form. Um, but yeah, he slaughters all the cops, and then at the very end, like one of them like tries to get away. She gets out, and then the last cop finally gets killed around a corner, and then Toby Todd, his character, finally makes an appearance, and I'm just like, really, you promoted him so much in the marketing material, and this is the only freaking shot you got of him. It was frustrating, but yeah, he's just like telling Brianna, tell everyone, and then more cops show up. So like it, I guess it's open to a sequel. I mean, I hope not, because this is not a Candyman that I am very much interested in. Like this is like a remake, but it's also a sequel because it's different. It changes the lore and it changes the entire point of Candyman, but it's also a sequel because it's supposed to take place after the original Candyman, with the exception of the last 5 minutes. So that was sad. So as you're going through the credits, I do like that part because it does the paper puppetry again, cardboard or paper puppetry of all of the Candymen and how they got to be Candymen, which was cool. You know, I love that aspect of it. Again, my biggest thing was just the whole story, the whole plot, and the whole fact that they changed this from a horror to a horror with like some social bits scattered into a social commentary with a spattering of horror, and it was sad. So yeah, once again, I was very disappointed in this, and I am giving it a 6 of 10. But that is my Candyman review. I hope you enjoyed it. There are my thoughts. Again, not a bad movie. Not the movie I thought it would be or hoped it would be. It was not a Candyman film. It didn't feel like a Candyman film, and it definitely didn't feel like a horror film. So, uh, take from that what you will. This was a complicated one to review, to be honest. Uh, but yeah, I will see you next time, guys. Catch you later.